We are still here. It's Saturday, the final day of the 2026 Republican Party of Texas Convention in Houston, Texas. I'm really excited to be joined by my friend Jace Yarbrough. He is the Republican nominee for Congressional District 32 in North Texas. Jace, you've been a busy guy, one of the candidates that had to go to a runoff of sorts. And so you've spent a lot of time with voters over the last several months. Talk to me about what you've been hearing and seeing on the campaign trail, and how does that coincide with all the issues we'll be taking up today here at Convention on the floor when we visit about legislative priorities and platform and all the things that we want lawmakers to address.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Destin. So big issues, not going to be a surprise to your listeners, right? First is immigration, the Islamification of our state, right? Who are we as a people? What does it mean to be an American? Second issue is affordability, right? So why is it that we are allowing, our foreign adversaries who don't play by the rules of the free market to influence, so much about what industries are available here, what jobs are available here, the quality of the goods and services that our people can enjoy? And then, the third big piece was the president's America First Abroad agenda. People are very concerned about that. So those are the things we're hearing about. I think fundamentally, not necessarily setting policy aside, but the thing that really resonated with folks that we talked about a lot on the campaign trail was, yes, there is a set of policies that's associated with the president and the America First agenda, but there's also a disposition, right? And the disposition is distinct from what the old GOP thought, right? Old wisdom was like, hey, if we exercise moderation and restraint, if we don't use power, that'll impress the independents and they'll flock to our banner and they'll vote for us, right? And of course, that never happens. We just get our teeth kicked in and it's a one-way ratchet and we all feel it. And so the thing I think that voters want and that we talked about a lot was we need people that are ready to go on offense, to find opportunities to take ground back, to take the fight to the left, not just play defense and be reactionary all the time.
You're a young man. I've been really encouraged to see a lot more young people here at this convention, and they are fiercely conservative. They want us to paint with really bold colors. Have you been encouraged by folks, young men in particular, who seem to be kind of waking up? And what's driving that? Do you hear on the ground from folks that are showing up to support you and other really young conservative candidates like you?
Yeah, that's absolutely my experience. The young Republicans throughout my district, and we've got 8 counties, to a club, all of them got behind us very enthusiastically. And I think it is a point to be encouraged by. Though they would never phrase it like this, the way I sum up what they're saying is, look, the American project is failing. Yeah. This is not working, right? Marriage rates on the decline. We're basically offering to the next generation a long series of dopamine hits, right? Whether it's just free access, unlimited access to gambling, to pornography, to weed, to nicotine, to processed foods, right? And this becomes a substitute for what used to be fulfilling activities that were about more than just gratifying your immediate appetites. And there is something innate in us that says, look, and I'll say in young men that says, look, I want to do hard things in the service of a project that is bigger than me. Yeah. And I cannot manufacture that project on my own. I have got to rely on generations who've come before to give me at least some starting points to think about what are the sorts of things that I should be doing to prepare myself, right, and to engage in those kind of long-term, more fulfilling activities. And frankly, a lot of the folks in the older generations think the way to win the young folks over is, we just give them what they want. Make it more entertaining. Make it more fun, right? That is not the way to national prosperity. It's not the way to dynamic communities in which new businesses, new schools, new churches, new institutions are being stood up. And I think we're at a point where, thanks be to God, the kind of younger millennials and the Gen Z folks and young men in particular are saying, no, I have things to offer that are inherently good, and I want to go offer them. I don't just want to sit in front of a screen satisfying my own immediate appetites. And so, nobody phrases it that way when they come talk to me, but the sum total of the things that I hear is oriented in that direction.
That's wonderful. I'm very encouraged by that. I'm glad that you feel that way, because it does feel like there's an enormous rise in vices. And of course, that's not organic, right? There's a huge industry that's perpetuating things on young men in particular, but certainly young people of every stripe, shape, and color, because you've got this kind of consumer for life attitude and thinking, kind of like the old big tobacco deal, right? And so what do we do? Is there things federally, of course, our organization working very diligently at the state level to push back on things like the expansion of gambling to Texas. But what about the federal level? Are there things that you're looking at that you think help deliver for that really strong, growing consensus among young people and conservatives who want more than has been given in the past?
Yeah. Well, I think we're at a point. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done in this space because the kind of free market maximalist libertarian wing of the party has been so strong for so long.
Yeah.
And even by their own principles, I think what's happening is actually not free market oriented. A lot of the vices that are popping up exist because there's some government preference that's given to these institutions or to these groups of people that are basically profiting off of the getting young people addicted.
Right.
And so I think that the best thing that we can begin to do is start to talk in terms of what is a healthy economy, what is a healthy free market economy,
what's a healthy family, what's a healthy person.
Yes, right. And we have been conditioned to prefer every other culture to our own. We get nervous whenever people make objective statements about reality and the way things are, right? Like, if you want to be happy, generally, the best advice, right? Graduate from high school, get married, have children, right? Invest. Go to work, like work in a good, decent job, right? Go to church, read the Bible, pray. You do these things, these lead to happy, contented, fulfilling lives.
Right.
We don't feel like we can say that publicly anymore. It's almost like the core convictions of our culture, religious and cultural, we've been forced to sort of treat them like private hobbies.
Sure.
As if this isn't a public, if this is a common kind of public endeavor that we're engaged in trying to build a society, continue a civilization, right? America is the vanguard for the protection of Western civilization.
Right.
In order to do that well, we have to both know what that civilization gave us and then be unapologetic about supporting the things that are the most beneficial about it. And in my opinion, the thing about the West, the distinguishing characteristic of who we are is that we are a Christian people.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean you have to be a Christian in order to participate, but you have to be on board with certain convictions and values that are themselves fundamentally Christian. And no other culture has that gift to offer the world. And so that's a project that I think, going back to the idea that young people need something that's going to call them forth, right? That's a project that I think young men, young women can get on board with, to say, look, the idea of inherent human dignity.
Right.
Each individual is made in the image of God, and whether or not they share my convictions or values, it's my obligation to treat them with respect and dignity, right? Like, that is a precious, unique perspective that we in the West have, we in the West gave to the world, and will die if our civilization does not continue.
And it also uniquely stands athwart the political movement of globalists and transhumanism and all these other big umbrella topics that trickle down into things that we see all over, like affordability. I want to talk to you about that real quick, Jace.
Yes.
Affordability brings up all these great fiscal issues. Are fiscal issues back on the menu? It feels like they've come back into vogue. 2014, 2012, 2010 feels like forever ago. But in 2026, we were talking about young people. The average age of Texans buying their first home is 40. So crushing affordability issues are very real.
Yes.
Young people disproportionately maybe bearing the brunt of it, but everybody feeling the impact. What are some things that you think we can address in Washington to deal with these?
Yeah, well, I think the H-1B visa issue, the immigration issue, and the fraud inherent in a lot of the communities that come over on these programs is, if not priority one, very high. I mean, here in North Texas, a lot of the housing, the explosion in housing costs we're experiencing is because of the rapid increase in the number of Indians who were coming to purchase homes here. And that was a result of the fact that we were giving preferences that should have been limited to American citizens to foreigners who were coming over to our country, and frankly, to do jobs that Americans are completely capable of doing, right? I mean, the history of the H-1B visa program is one of, the success of certain interests and lobbyists in D.C. who basically just wanted cheaper labor, right? Yeah. And so there's a certain delta between an American worker who says, take an American software engineer, for example, right? Gonna demand a certain wage, a certain salary. You bring in an H-1B visa worker, if they get fired from that job, 60 days to find a new one, or it's back home for you, right? And if you're here and because of government programs, you've taken out a mortgage at a low interest rate, only having to put 2% down, for example, right? The idea that you're going to lose your job, right, and then have to leave and be shipped back home, I mean, that's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost as if many of our corporations have started to profit off of the strong desire for foreigners who are here on H-1Bs with mortgages not to want to be shipped back home.
Right.
That's wrong, right? That's not free market. The government's very much involved in that whole process, right?
That doesn't sound very free market to me.
Of course not.
And we know these programs over the last year, thanks to the work of kind of citizen journalists and activism from people all across the country, we're exposing the waste, fraud, and abuse that's contained within some of these government programs. Anywhere government puts money in order to accomplish a certain outcome, they over-accomplish and incentivize. So there's always going to be the swing of the pendulum too far. Do you see Congress doing anything to help solidify the efforts to Doge government, deal with our deficit spending, and some of these other fiscal issues of that nature?
So one of the benefits of Doge was I think it taught the Republican Party something, which is if you want to attack spending, right, the way to do it, one successful way to do it is to pick things that are particularly egregious. Go after them individually, right? Now, that's ultimately not going to make a huge dent in the kind of numbers we're throwing around, the deficits we're throwing around. And I think part of the reason that's the case is that there are really civilizational questions that we haven't answered. Is America and the American is the American war chest and the public coffers, are they for Americans or are they for foreigners?
Right.
Because right now the Democratic Party sees the public fisc as a way to bring in foreigners, sustain them here, and replace the American voting public. And so long as they're in power, that's how they are going to use any access they have to public resources. They're very good at compounding power, financial resources to propagate their own ideology and their own party in power. And
we see that even here in Texas.
Yes. And so, I mean, I think fighting Democrats is inherently a fiscally responsible thing to do for this reason. I think issues like immigration, H-1B visa reform are part and parcel of rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse, and also just recognizing that our public resources should not be drained by those who are not here legally with our permission, and we should think very hard about who and how many get to come in.
You mentioned Democrats. A lot of talk in Texas about, perhaps we're a swing state now again, right? We hear this every 2 or 4 years. Yeah. Jace, what message do you have for people out there who are concerned about Republicans' chances of maintaining power in Texas this fall?
Yeah, well, the first thing to do is take responsibility yourself, right? You have an obligation. Okay.
Yeah.
Go vote. Make sure your family votes.
Right.
Make sure that your neighbors vote, those people that share your values. The second thing I'll say is that, I think that the bones of this fight between the left and the right, I think they favor us, okay? And I think they favor us because the right is ultimately oriented around the things that it loves and wants to protect and conserve. And I think the left is fundamentally oriented around the things that it hates, okay? Mm-hmm. So you take Zohran Mamdani, for example, and I've said this elsewhere, right? Same guy says any number of different things that are contradictory. For example, number one, we need to globalize the intifada, right? Which, whatever that is, all right, obviously it's like it tied in with the radical Islamist movement, okay?
Sure.
At the same time, right, huge supporter of transgender rights, okay?
Right.
Now, how do those two things exist in the same person when they contradict one another? The reason is because they're not about something, they're against something. Both are tools to destroy America.
Right.
Both are tools to kill Americans. They will make common cause. The left will make common cause with anyone who hates the same things they do. And in my opinion, right, a team oriented around things that it hates is ultimately going to lose in the long run, right? So we need to be happy warriors. We cannot, as Christians and those who share my faith, despair is not an option. That is a sin.
That's right.
You cannot despair. You're falling into sin if you do that. Don't do that. Instead, trust that the Lord will bring about the things that he wants to do, but our efforts are absolutely a part of whatever project and activity he's engaged in. We need to be doing everything we can to fight. And that's why I'm running for CD32. That's why my family and I are sacrificing so much to do this.
Right. We're with Jace Yarbrough. He's the Republican nominee for Congressional District 32 in North Texas. To talk about and put a bow on what you just mentioned, do you feel like Republicans here in 2026 at this convention, the delegates, everybody involved, are oriented towards something true and beautiful? Because that's kind of what stands against everything you just described, trying to destroy, right?
Yeah.
Do you see us creating things and preserving that which is great about America?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the phase that we're in is really just about giving people permission to say true, good, and beautiful things are better, right? They're superior.
Sure.
Right? We have been conditioned in the West.
It's weird that the party of relativism doesn't understand the relative relationship between something being true and beautiful and the alternative. Right?
Yes, I agree. I mean, we have allowed, unfortunately, the left to co-opt our language and our sort of false sense of courtesy, use our false sense of courtesy against us to suggest that standing up for our own culture and our own convictions is somehow inherently immoral or wrong or bigoted, right? I mean, as a father, if I don't teach my children right from wrong,
right,
that is a curse to them. They're going to go through the world with a misconception about reality, right? The same principle applies, I think, in just relationships between people. I'm not being ugly or hateful when I say, no, some things are true and some things are false. You cannot turn little boys into little girls through plastic surgery. You can't do it.
Right.
You can mutilate them. You can permanently medicalize them. You can doom them to a life of despair and frustration, right? You can rob them of the ability to have children and engage in the fulfilling work of building a family, but you cannot turn them into the opposite gender, right? Saying these things is a blessing to my children, to the citizens of our country, and governments who stand for basic truths like that are doing their citizens a service.
Right.
They're not being hateful. And so right now we're in a time when I feel like what we need now is the permission to say these things as true, right?
Right.
No, this is not just a public-private conviction that I have. This is actually true about all people for all
objectively
times and all
so.
places. Objectively so, right? And so the more of us that are engaging in these conversations and, doing our homework to be intelligent and thoughtful about it, but then coming out and being bold, as you said, painting with bold colors, right? And I think that the kind of the time is ripe for that. People want to hear it.
This slate of Republicans is perhaps the boldest and most colorful I've seen in a long time. I think voters have determined that younger, fresher, more conservative perspective is the direction they want to go here at the Republican Party of Texas Convention. We're with Jace Yarbrough, again, Republican nominee for CD 32 in North Texas. Jace, maybe a closing word for delegates here in Houston or the folks watching along with us from home.
Yeah, keep up the fight, right? Keep up the fight. Never let up. The left certainly does not. It's incumbent upon us to stand boldly for the things that we know are right for our communities, even amidst the kind of persecutions that are going to come, and they will come. But again, I'm fundamentally hopeful, and that's because we are fighting for something. We have a vision for something.
Right.
Let's go and take that hill, and maybe we'll get there through a circuitous path. But we are moving freight now under President Trump in a way that we never have before, right? And just the fact that the conversation has shifted so dramatically on the issue of immigration.
And even the last 2 years, 4 years, 6 years,
yes.
it's almost exponentially so.
It is, right? I mean, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, right? It's something that people forget. And there are so many things like that. Be encouraged by that.
Again
These
and again.
are good things, right? Don't let up. Don't let up. We're going to win.
Awesome. We are here at the Republican Party of Texas Convention. It's the last day of the 2026 convention here in Houston, Texas. We'll have more coverage of it coming up soon, so stay tuned in. Thanks for joining us, and talk soon. Great. Jace, thank you.